Alright guys, today I'll be reviewing Steel Curtain at Kennywood. This is the 2019 S&S Hypercoaster. When this was first announced, I think a lot of people had a lot of questions about how this would actually ride, how good it would be. And when it opened, it got a lot of sort of mixed reviews. Some people really loved it, thought it was really intense. Others weren't quite as impressed, so I was really curious to finally get on it. And I gotta say, I'm definitely in the group that thinks this ride is amazing. In fact, I think I like it more than 99% of people, and I'll explain why in this review. So let's start with the presentation. This ride looks gargantuan. I mean, I know it's 220 feet tall, like, it's really tall, but it looks a lot taller than that in person. And actually, when you're in the queue line, the banana roll actually looks taller than the lift hill, and it's a really cool visual. I also think the theme is amazing. I mean, if it was themed to the Dolphins, I'd have to move it up a few spots in my rankings just for that. But it's still themed to the Steelers. It's a football team that I don't hate, so, you know, it's got to get some points for that. It's a really cool theme. There's not too much theming. The headrests look like footballs, and the safety spiel is sort of done in a sports commentator way. I mean, you got this guy, Billy, sort of telling you to leave your stuff in the locker room or with a teammate. It's kind of funny. But other than that, and the color scheme, which is really cool on this, yeah, there's not a whole lot of theming, but this ride definitely doesn't need theming. This ride does get the longest wait at Kennywood, at least not counting the haunts, because I was there on a Phantom Fall Fest Saturday, and those haunts got a ridiculous wait. But Steel Curtain in the afternoon and at night was around an hour to an hour and a half wait consistently. I will say in the morning, and this goes for all the rides at Kennywood, they do not get very busy first thing in the morning, at least not on Phantom Fall Fest nights, so the first 3 to 4 hours of the day are usually pretty dead. I usually waited 10 minutes for my first 5 rides on Steel Curtain, and then I got one night ride, and it was great, but I waited an hour 40 minutes for that, so definitely be warned if you're going during Phantom Fall Fest. I can't necessarily tell you how it is outside of that, but I mean, if you look on queue times, this ride always has a huge wait. And rightfully so. I mean, it is an eye-catcher. A lot of the GP will think this is the best ride in the park. And you know, this time I have to agree with them. Once you get into the station, you'll be assigned a row. All the groupers I encountered would let you choose a row. I do think the back row is ever so slightly better than the front, but there's really no bad row on this ride, and really no bad side either. Really any seat on this ride is great, which is a big reason why I love it so much. You're going to get a great ride no matter where you sit. I do have a slight preference for the left side. I think the laterals are a bit stronger there, but it doesn't matter too much on this one. You're going to get a great ride either way. I will say a lot of people wait for the very front, so if you want the very front, I would go here first thing in the morning. That's what I did, and I did get the very front my first ride, and it was great. I love the sense of speed up there. That being said, in the back, some of those later elements especially do deliver a bit more force. Now, let's talk about these trains, because some might say this is Steel Curtain's biggest downfall, and I would have to agree. The lap bars themselves, I don't have a problem with. I think they're comfortable. They don't really hurt. Do be warned, though, if you're a taller rider, especially with longer legs, because my dad tried to sit in these trains, and he's definitely a bit taller than me, and he said those shin guards were horrible for him. So definitely be warned about that. They are a bit padded, so that's nice. But the main thing about these trains that just does not make sense are the seatbelts. They do make sense when you think about it. I mean, obviously insurance will be lower, but basically what these seatbelts do is they have to verify that the seatbelts are actually locked in place before the train can be sent out. On a normal ride, you just click in the seatbelt. You could potentially undo it during the ride or on the brake run or whatever, and the system wouldn't detect it. With these seatbelts, every single one of the seatbelts has to be buckled, no matter what, for that train to dispatch. And I've heard that this is the main thing that causes Steel Curtain's downtime nowadays. It's pretty reliable, but if it goes down, it is most likely due to the seatbelts, they told me. And I could see why. I mean, it's a complicated looking system, and unfortunately, the seatbelts can get tight. So even if you have a bunch of room with the lap bar, the seatbelt will stay in that one place. It gives about an inch, but it doesn't give that much, so there is no possible way to get a ton of room on this ride. But that being said, if you have the lap bar fairly high up, I mean, the ops do kind of staple here, but not too hard. So it's definitely possible to have the lap bar a bit up. It is very cool getting airtime where all that's catching you is a seatbelt. I definitely enjoy that a lot. It's not as cool as getting like a ton of room, but it's definitely a unique feeling. The operations on this ride are fairly quick, and I know, again, some of these seatbelt issues can arise even during normal operations. I saw them always have to go back and say, oh, this seatbelt isn't quite buckled, so they have to go tap on that real quick and figure that out. So yeah, if you see steel curtain with a long dispatch time, just know it's most likely not due to the ops. So with that being said, we're going to finally head out of the station and head up the lift hill. And if you've been on this thing, you know how slow this lift hill is at the start. It does pick up speed later, and I mean, it's cool because you get an amazing view. But I almost wish this lift hill was that slow until the very end. Like, I wish it just sped up right before you go down the drop, because, man, that view is incredible. It might be the best view on any non-Cedar Point coaster, and even then it could contend with those. I mean, you get to see all the factories right across from the river. It's truly stunning, especially if you're on the right side. I would encourage you to do the right side at least once just for that view. But anyways, you're going to eventually hear Renegade by Styx, and that's a pretty cool song going up the lift hill, I can't lie. Sort of feels like you're getting hyped for a football game. And there's no real story to this, but in my own head I created one where it's like, yeah, you're getting ready to play in a Steelers game here, and the ride layout is the football game. I don't know, it sort of just makes sense to me. Anyways, you're going to finally reach the top, and you're going to head down the first drop, which is the Drachenfire dive drop. This inversion feels cool. I wasn't sure what to expect from this going in, but I was pleasantly surprised. The first little pre-drop doesn't really do anything, no airtime there, but then you start twisting to the left, and you get a little laterals there, but it's mainly cool just staring down at the ground from that high up. And then you get a little pop of airtime twisting out of it and going down the main portion of the drop, especially if you're on the left side. You get some decent floater on that. I never really heard about the airtime on that drop, but it was pretty cool. After that, you're going to straighten out and then do a little turn to the left, and that really doesn't pull any forces. That's mainly just showcasing the speed, so that's really cool in the front. And then you pull up into the banana roll, and here's where you really realize Steel Curtain is pretty much doing something throughout the entire ride, no matter what it is. This pull-up is very intense. In the front, I almost grayed out. In the back, I didn't quite gray out, but I definitely felt the G's even back there. And then it's going to be the opposite on the pull-out of this element. The banana roll itself does give some pretty good laterals. I noticed you got thrown to the left a little bit going into it, and then you got thrown to the left a little bit harder coming out of it. So I think that's a back row element slightly, but either way, it's still really good. After that, you're going to turn to the left again and go through the strongest pop of airtime if you're in the back row. This is definitely ejector. I'd say it's moderate in strength, but that being said, moderate ejector is still really good. Again, especially when you have that seatbelt catching you. It's a pretty weird feeling, but I definitely like it. In the front, you're going to get some really weak ejector there, but it's still solid, and you really feel the speed on that. After that, you're going to head through the Sea Serpent roll, and this one feels kind of similar to the banana roll. You get some good positives going into it if you're in the front. In the back, this element definitely doesn't deliver too strong of positives until the very end, but the pull-up is still pretty good. And then you get a little bit of laterals going into the first inversion, especially towards the front. That'll throw you to the right a little bit. The second inversion doesn't really deliver any whip, especially towards the back, weirdly enough. In the front, you get a little bit of laterals to the left, but in the back, you don't really get any laterals. However, the pull-out of this element is extremely intense in the back. I mean, I grayed out here on pretty much every ride. Even in my early morning rides, this element was very intense. You felt the face pulls and everything here. It's definitely one of the best moments of positives on the ride. After that, you're going to head through a speed hill, and this one's pretty cool. In the morning, it delivered Flowjector, but in the afternoon, it delivered very weak ejector, and the strength is pretty much consistent throughout the entire train. Whether you're in row 7, row 12, row 2, like whatever, it's going to be pretty much the same strength I found, which is very good. I mean, you know what you're getting yourself into with this element no matter where you sit. This is also a pretty sustained hill. You're out of your seat for a few seconds here, which is really great. After that, you're going to head through my third favorite element on the ride, which is the dive loop. Now, I think this is slightly better in the back, but it could really go either way, and slightly better on the left side too. If you're in the front right, you're going to get stronger airtime on this, but if you're in the back left, you're going to get stronger whip on this. So really dealer's choice there. In the front, you get some decently strong floater going into the dive loop, and then you get thrown to the left a little bit, almost Top Thrill 2 style. Obviously nowhere near that intense. I mean, pretty much nothing's that intense, but still. And then in the back left, you're going to get stronger whip on that descent, and then a little weaker airtime going into it. You also have more strong Gs on the pullout of this if you're towards the back, which is really great. After this, you have a little straightaway before going into the stall, which is my personal favorite element on the ride. This thing is very whippy. If you're on the left side, which is where I think is the best seat for this element, you're going to get some very strong whip coming out of this. Going into it, you get whipped to the right pretty hard, but then you get whipped left very violently if you're on that left side. It feels like Top Thrill 2 again, sort of. Again, nothing on this ride is quite as strong as that Top Thrill 2 death whip at the very end, but there's a lot of moments that are reminiscent of it, and this is definitely the strongest of them. On the right side, you're also going to get some pretty good whip, but not quite as strong as on the left side. I didn't really notice any airtime going into and out of this element like some of the RMC ones do, or Alpenfury or whatever, but that's okay. It's also not a very sustained stall. It's only sustained for a couple seconds, but I don't really care because the main part of this element is the whip, and it does that extremely well. After that, you're going to hit a step up, giving Flowjector towards the back and weak ejector towards the front. It's a very good airtime moment. And then the inversion following, which is a corkscrew, is pretty good too. You get some weak floater airtime throughout this element. It's definitely stronger than just hang time, so I would consider it airtime, but it's very weak for a airtime-filled inversion, I would say. But you also get some decent whip throughout this element, just sort of ragdolling here. But you also feel some weightlessness here, so it's sort of a mix of floater and hang time. I don't know, it's really hard to describe, but it's a really cool element. And then you're going to hit the strongest moment of positives on the ride. This one was a really sustained gray out for me. It sustains it for a few seconds here, and it is strong. I mean, you feel really strong face pulls on this. And then that's even crazier because the next element is a cutback, and this one feels very similar to the stall in that you get decent laterals throwing you to the right going into it, a bit of hang time, and then that sort of Top Thrill 2 style whip throwing you to the left after it. And going from really strong positives to those strong laterals is amazing. And then after that, you're going to have one last pop into the brake run, giving pretty good ejector towards the front. I would say that's the strongest moment of airtime in the front. And then Flowjector towards the back. I was impressed that I got Flowjector towards the back on this element. I didn't even know if I was going to get anything, but yeah, it's a pretty strong pop of airtime, I would say. And then that's your ride on Steel Curtain. Now, this ride does stack fairly often, and part of that is because the first train has to get part the way up the lift hill before the second one can go back into the station. So don't be like me and try to unbuckle your seatbelt on the brake run, because my first ride I tried to do that just to get the seatbelt off, and I realized I couldn't do that. It was locked in place, so just know that going in that that's not even an option. But anyways, let's talk about the smoothness and pacing before giving this thing a final score. The smoothness on this ride is pretty much impeccable. I personally like rougher rides, especially wooden coasters, but steel coasters are cool if they're rough too. And this one unfortunately isn't that for me, but for everyone else that's probably a really good thing. This ride is glass smooth. I couldn't hint any sort of rattle. I know some people thought this ride was a bit rough. I heard a couple reviews saying that, but I mean maybe that was just before they did all the work in 2024. Now it's pretty much glass smooth from what I can tell. And the pacing on this ride is pretty much perfect. I mean, it's relentless from start to finish. It feels the same speed at the very end that it was at the very start, and it keeps that speed very well throughout the elements. If you ride this thing early in the morning, it could feel a little sluggish, but I think that's made up for by the sequencing, because the sequencing on this ride is also great. The way these elements just flow together, they flow really fluidly, but not too fluidly to the point where they just feel copy and pasted, like you're just going through the motions there. So it's very good. I also want to just mention, this might be a top 5 most well-rounded coaster I've ever been on. I mean, you've pretty much heard me talk about every single force possible without doing a gimmick like a backwards or spinning section, and it keeps its pacing extremely well. The variety throughout the layout is extremely prominent. I mean, there's an airtime moment, then a lateral moment, then a positive G moment, and so on and so forth. It's very diverse. The sense of speed's great. I mean, it pretty much does everything, and it does everything really well. So for Steel Curtain's final score, I'm going to be giving it a 9.5 out of 10. I think this is a really underrated ride. This ride is truly the jack of all trades that does all those trades really well. Maybe not quite as intense as something like Maverick, but it's still a very intense ride, and my personal favorite coaster at Kennywood. So let me know what you guys thought of this review down in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.